law school taught me that I can push the boundaries without actually breaking the law. And that was really empowering. And I've done that in so many different aspects of my life. And I think it's helped me, get to where I am.
So, Joshua, thank you so much for joining the You Are a Lawyer podcast. I am so excited because you are a mighty lawyer. Would you tell everyone what that means?
Yes. So Mighty is an interesting company, two entities. One is Mighty, which I am the CEO and founder. And Mighty has a mission to help people after an accident move forward with their lives and get the compensation and care they need to return to their normal or their new normal. We're also affiliated with Mighty Law, which is a traditional personal injury law firm that helps represent people after an accident. And Mighty Law and Mighty work incredibly closely together to deliver an extraordinary experience for consumers. But one of the things to note is that there's no shared ownership between the two companies. Mighty Law is owned by the lawyers who work there, and Mighty is a company that I am the CEO and founder of.
Okay, very cool. And so which came first, Mighty Law or Mighty?
So Mighty came first, and Mighty saw the problem that many personal injury lawyers had incentives that were misaligned with the incentives of their clients. And Mighty Law started and founded in response to that, to try and change the dynamics of personal injury law. And Mighty Law lawyers all agreed, for example, to a code of conduct that is unlike anything that exists in personal injury, that rewires their incentives and creates a much better arrangement for their clients to ensure that they're getting the best representation possible.
Okay. So when I saw Mighty, and for everyone listening, everyone watching on YouTube, go to the website. I will list it here. Great site. Green's my favorite color, so there's that. But my favorite part was a Mighty guide for everything, because it just makes you say, oh, what do you mean? What isn't already listed here on the site, right? So you click on a Mighty guide of everything, and it's just anything and everything you could possibly think about. So why did you decide to found a legal tech company? Like, what was missing in the industry that you were like, I can fill that void?
Yeah, when people get in accidents, often they need a tremendous amount of support, help, guidance, way beyond just help filing the lawsuit and getting their settlement. And when we actually started talking to people in accidents, they were scared because they didn't know doctors to go to, and they didn't necessarily know how they were going to pay for them or pay the deductibles. They were out of work because of their injury and couldn't afford to pay for their rent or for their food for their family. People were struggling with mental health issues. We found that there's a 300% increased likelihood that people commit suicide in the months after their accident compared to the general population. And law firms, the way that traditional personal injury law firms are set up, is they're tasked with one thing and one thing only: get me a settlement. That's how they get paid. That's their incentive. And that's how they structured and organized. And so we wanted to create a more holistic experience for consumers for less cost than a traditional law firm charges for just legal representation. And we do both.
Okay, so I have to ask more questions, because holistic experience, what does that mean?
I think it starts with a philosophical thing, which is traditional personal injury lawyers say, okay, tell me about your accident. Do you have the police report? Okay, we're going to file a demand for you. Like, that's the interaction you have with a traditional personal injury law firm. With Mighty, we start with, how are you? How can we help you? What are you going through? Is your car damaged? Have you been able to get that fixed? Have you been able to get treatment? Are you still looking for the right doctors? What is your financial situation? And how are you paying the bills while all of this is going on? When someone calls us and says, hey, I just wanted to tell you what I'm going through, we don't say, don't call me again, this has nothing to do with your case. We embrace that. So I think it starts with a mentality, but it also is concrete in that we've developed products and help for people that no personal injury law firm ever has. So one example is Mighty facilitates what we call friends and family interest-free loans to consumers. So what that means is that after an accident, Mighty will actually get involved if a person who is injured has friends and family who want to lend them money in order to wait for their case to settle, and Mighty will do things like facilitate the loan documents. We will pay the family member back directly from the settlement so that they have increased assurance that they're going to actually get repaid. So there's a lot of things that are both tangible and intangible that we do to create a more holistic experience.
Okay. I think that's really cool. And I like that you started by saying it's a philosophical approach, because you said that in your pre-recording questionnaire that you went to law school to find out the theories behind law. Why does this matter? Why are rules here? Did you actually study philosophy in undergrad?
I took a philosophy class, but I didn't major in it.
Okay.
But I definitely am inspired by philosophy.
Yeah. And so you went to the University of Michigan. I have to mention that because I went to the Ohio State University. And so what was it like when you were making the decision after undergrad to say, I think law school would be a good decision for me?
Yeah, it was a hard decision because I was pretty sure I didn't want to be a traditional lawyer, and going to law school is expensive and long. And so making that decision, frankly, has a lot of costs associated. But now looking back at it, I am incredibly grateful at the education and the experiences that it afforded me. And while I wouldn't advise most people to go to law school now, I myself feel very lucky to have been able to go then.
Yeah. So one of the things that I think that's so fascinating about your story is that this podcast is for people with game-changing ideas, ambitious side hustles, people who didn't have their creativity kind of run out of them from law school. What was it like when you said, I don't want to be a traditional lawyer, I'm going to try something else? What was that like when you told your friends and family about it?
Yeah, so the truth is that I think for a lot of people, it can't be that stark. And for me, it wasn't necessarily that stark. I did practice law out of law school to pay the bills. And what I was always determined to do was find ways, pursue non-legal avenues, often through business, and just slowly started doing more and more things that were outside of the law. And before I knew it, I just hadn't done anything in law for a year and 5 years and 10 years. And so I do think that for some people, it can be a very deliberate choice. And I think for other people, it's really healthy to slowly phase it out.
I am nodding my head here like, yes, absolutely. And I'm laughing because you said you kept looking for non-legal things to do, and my head went to illegal. So everyone, he clarified that. He meant things in terms of businesses or founding companies and stuff. You're licensed in 3 different states. Did you practice personal injury law and, everywhere that you were licensed, or did you get licensed in starting Mighty, or what?
So I'm licensed in 3 states. In some ways, it was the biggest mistake I ever made because I have to maintain and pay for 3 licenses. But to answer your question, I took all 3 of the bar exams right out of law school. And I never actually practiced personal injury law myself. I was always practicing other parts of law, contract law, trademark law, real estate law. Personal injury, I actually got into through a financing job that I had where we were financing personal injury law firms. And that really opened my eyes to this large and really screwed up industry. Was excited to be barred in many states and realize now that it was probably more work than it should have been worth.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have to touch a little bit more on law school because you said you did practice for a little bit, but you say that law school, you credit it with teaching you confidence or making you a more confident person. What was it about law school that brought that out of you?
Yeah, so I'm a big believer that rules are often silly and all rules are not created equal. And I think that there are many, many people in society who take all rules as the end all be all and try and live their lives in this cocoon of enforcement and are scared to, put a toe across any line. And I think for certain things, that makes a ton of sense. You never want to steal, you never want to hurt somebody. But there are a lot of opportunities in the world to push the boundaries and in ways that actually help society. And I think one of the things that law school showed me was that our rules that we are guided by and that we live by, some of them are from hundreds of years ago. Some of them are not well thought out. And many of them have holes, especially as society changes and we have new technologies and new industries that the rules were not created for. And law school taught me that I can push the boundaries without actually breaking the law. And that was really empowering. And I've done that in so many different aspects of my life. And I think it's helped me, get to where I am. Most recently, despite Mighty not being a law firm, we've been able to partner with Mighty Law and create a better way of practicing law that is new and novel and totally within all ethical bounds, but we're one of the first companies to do it. And so I think that's an example of how we can push things forward.
I think that's a really good answer because I remember when I went to law school, I was really, everything is black or white. Laws are black or white, right? You even approach a yellow light, you should stop because it's about to be red. And then you get to law school and you learn that everything is gray, everything is a mixture, and everything kind of changes depending on who's looking at it. So you mentioned something, you said it was just a little quick comment about the inequities that you noticed while you were working and looking at different law firms. Is that why Mighty was created, so that you could make things simpler for everyone, so that it is just right there on one screen, everything you could possibly need?
Mighty was created, I think, for a larger reason, which is that personal injury is actually one of the most important industries in the country that we have, because it helps the vulnerable when they are most vulnerable. State Farm, Allstate, Geico pay hundreds of billions of dollars a year to help people. And yet the parties that benefit most from it are not the people who get injured who need the most help. It's the personal injury lawyers, the personal injury doctors, the finance companies that make bank. And this is not surprising in any industry when one party that lacks expertise, lacks political connections, lacks wherewithal, which consumers in cases do because they're usually only injured once, but they're about to get a lot of money. You see these very sophisticated parties who try and, frankly, take as much of that money as possible. And I saw firsthand how people after an accident were often re-victimized more after their accident than in their accident themselves. And I thought that was absolutely terrible. So Mighty was founded to actually give the consumer more of the power and the benefit and help to root out some of the bad practices that the people in personal injury have that frankly hurt people who are injured in accidents.
Okay. As you're speaking, I keep seeing those commercials running through my head where the people hold up the checks and they're like, my lawyer got me all this money. But there are literal billions of dollars behind that we're not even seeing. And that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, and I think even those ads are often misleading. Those checks, number one, are usually the 0.1% of people get checks that high. Even more to my point, if somebody holds up a check, my lawyer got me a $350,000 settlement. What most people don't realize is that the client themselves usually gets less than 100,000 of that, because the rest goes to all of the repeat players who quote unquote help throughout the case. And that's really eye-opening to people who didn't realize that they were going to only get such a small piece of that settlement pie.
Yeah. Can anyone from all over the country sign up on mighty.com to find a lawyer, or is it only for specific states right now, or what?
Yeah, so Mighty is available all over the country. And even if we can't help you, we have a network of lawyers that can. And so we have the greatest domain name, we think, in all of personal injury, which is just mighty.com. And we're excited to help people all across the country.
Yeah, it is really good. It'd be cool. Okay, so you can help people all over the country, or you can refer people. And so if you are watching this interview on YouTube, you will see the website name listed right there across the screen. If you're only listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, youralawyer.com, please make sure you check out Joshua Schwadron. The company that he founded is called Mighty, and that's just like it sounds, mighty.com. And I'll make sure I leave all of those details in the show notes. Okay. So Joshua, I have one last question for you. And that is, do you have any advice for a law student that's in law school, doesn't quite know what they want to do about their future and what could possibly come?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of innovation that's happening in the law. And it is going to change the way that law is practiced. It might not happen next year. It might not happen in 5 years. But for someone in law school, they have to think about 10, 20, even 30 years from now. And what I would strongly encourage people to do is develop an expertise that is not going to ever be disrupted by AI or automation. And one of the things that attracts me about personal injury is most personal injury, I think, will be disrupted by AI and automation, because the same sorts of accidents happen to the same sorts of people thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of times a year. And those things can largely be automated. So I think my advice would be find a niche, learning, expertise, knowledge, ingratiate yourself to the people in that space, learn to love that sector and niche. And I think if people do that, they will find not only will they be happy, but they'll make a lot of money.
That is very well said. Well, thank you so much, Joshua. I'm excited to share this interview with the audience.
Thank you so much for having me. This was wonderful.
Yeah, just a quick conversation. I like to keep it really light.
Cool.
So, all right, have a great day. Bye.
Thank you.